The stars looked different from the observation deck of the UES Intrepid. Captain Lauren Miller stood with her hands clasped behind her back, gazing at the endless void beyond the Kuiper Belt. Humanity had come far in the last century. Mars colonies thrived under their domes. The research stations on Europa and Titan sent regular reports of progress, but space was vast, and humans had only scratched the surface of what lay beyond. "Captain, we're picking up something unusual," said Communications Officer Frank Porter. His voice broke the silence of the observation deck. Lauren turned away from the viewport. "Define unusual, Porter." "A signal, ma'am. Not natural. Definitely not one of ours." Lauren felt her heart rate increase. First contact. After all the years of searching, it might finally be happening on her watch. "Alert Admiral Hayes. Tell him we may have found someone else out here." Within hours, the Intrepid was on high alert. The signal grew stronger as they approached its source. Then they saw a ship unlike anything humans had built. It was massive, at least 3 times the size of the Intrepid, with a sleek design that seemed to bend the light around it. "They're hailing us," Porter said, his voice shaking slightly. "Put them through," Lauren ordered, straightening her uniform. The viewscreen flickered to life, revealing a being that was clearly not human. It had a tall, slender frame, skin that shimmered with a bluish tint, and eyes that seemed too large for its narrow face. "Greetings, humans of Earth," the alien said in perfect English. "I am Ambassador Zorlak of the Thalian Confederation. We have been observing your species for some time." The next few days passed in a blur. Admiral Richard Hayes arrived with a diplomatic team from Earth. The Thalians revealed they were not one species but an alliance of 7 advanced civilizations. They had technologies humans had only dreamed of: faster-than-light travel, energy shields, medical advancements that could extend life by centuries. But something bothered Hayes as he sat through meeting after meeting. There was a tone in the aliens' voices when they spoke about humans, a slight condescension, like adults speaking to clever children. "Your species has potential," said Zorlak during one session. He picked up a metal rod from the table and bent it with his fingers as if it were made of clay. "Despite your physical limitations." The Thalian delegation seemed amused when Hayes struggled to lift objects they handled with ease. They moved with such speed that sometimes they appeared as blurs. Their reflexes were impossibly fast. "We offer Earth membership in our confederation," Zorlak announced on the 5th day. "You would benefit from our protection and technology." Hayes reviewed the terms that night. The agreement would place Earth under Thalian protection. Humans would get access to some technologies, but not all. Earth would provide resources and labor for Confederation projects. The terms seemed more appropriate for a colony than an equal partner. "They don't respect us," Hayes told Lauren as they walked through the Intrepid's corridors. "They see us as weak. Useful perhaps, but lesser." "What will Earth do?" Lauren asked. "The government is divided. Some want the technology at any cost. Others worry about becoming servants rather than partners." A Thalian officer passed them in the corridor, moving with that fluid grace that made humans look clumsy in comparison. He nodded slightly, a gesture that somehow managed to convey pity. "They laugh at our strength," Hayes said quietly after the alien was gone. "But they don't know humans very well, if they think strength is just about muscle and bone." As the diplomatic talks continued, news of the alien contact spread across Earth and its colonies. Humanity stood at a crossroads: accept their place as junior partners in a vast galactic community, or somehow prove they deserved more. The Thalians waited for an answer, confident they already knew what it would be. After all, what choice did these fragile, slow, weak humans really have? 6 months after first contact, the massive transport ship carried Earth's first official delegation to Centauri Prime, the central hub world of the Thalian Confederation. Major Samantha Wright pressed her face against the viewport as they approached. The planet was covered in sprawling cities that glittered like jewels, with towering spires that reached into the clouds. "Impressive, isn't it?" Dr. Alan Garcia joined her at the window. As the delegation's xenobiologist, he had spent the journey studying files on the 7 species that made up the Confederation. It makes New York look like a village, Samantha admitted. Diplomat Jackson Cole straightened his tie as he approached them. Remember why we're here. Earth accepted provisional membership, but we need better terms. The resource demands are too high, and the technology sharing too limited. Their ship docked at a massive space station orbiting the planet. As they disembarked, Samantha noticed how the aliens towered over them. The Krell, a reptilian species with thick scales and powerful limbs, stood nearly 8 feet tall. The Voss, with their forearms and quick movements, darted around the humans as if they were standing still. A blue-skinned Thalian met them at the arrival gate. "Welcome to the heart of civilization," he said with the same condescending tone they had grown used to. "I am Advisor Marin. I will guide your transition into our society." Their first week was filled with meetings and tours. They saw wonders that left them speechless. Medical facilities that could regrow limbs, ships that could cross the galaxy in days, robots that seemed almost alive. But something bothered Samantha. Everywhere they went, she noticed other species, performing manual labor. Small, furry beings cleaned the floors. Insect-like creatures maintained equipment. When she asked about them, Marin's answer chilled her. "Category 4 and 5 species," he explained casually. "They serve where they are most useful, as your humans might eventually do." During a diplomatic reception on their 8th day, Samantha overheard 2 Krell warriors talking about Earth. "Another weak species," one said. "Good minds, perhaps, but no strength, classified as Category 4. "What does that mean?" Samantha asked, interrupting them. The Krell looked surprised, then amused. "The universal ranking, of course. Category 1 are the strongest, most advanced, like the founding Thalian species. Humans are Category 4, physically weak but intellectually promising, useful for certain tasks." "We're not weak," Samantha said, feeling her face grow hot. The Krell laughed, a rumbling sound that drew attention from nearby aliens. "Perhaps you would care to demonstrate?" He pointed to a metal bar on a nearby table. "A simple test." The room grew quiet as Samantha approached the bar. The Krell lifted it with one hand, then bent it into a curve with apparent ease. He handed it to Samantha with a smirk. She gripped the bar with both hands and strained until her arms shook. The metal didn't budge. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Later that night, Jackson found her on the balcony of their quarters. "Don't let it bother you. We're not here to win strength contests." "Did you know about this category system?" she asked. "I found out today, but I also learned something else." Jackson lowered his voice. "The Confederation is facing a threat. Something called the Drokath Horde has been attacking outer colonies. That's why they're suddenly interested in new member species." Alan joined them, his face grim. "I've been studying their biological data. Humans have some unique qualities they might be underestimating. Our endurance, for one, and our adaptability." "It doesn't matter," Samantha said, looking up at the alien stars. "They've already decided what we are. Weak, useful only as servants or laborers." Jackson shook his head. "Maybe. But history is full of underestimated people who changed the world. And now, we have a whole galaxy to prove wrong." From the shadows of a nearby tower, Advisor Marin watched the humans talk. These creatures were strange, physically unimpressive, yet somehow unwilling to accept their natural place. He had seen it before with other species. They would learn, eventually. They always did. 2 months later, alarms blared across the Thalian Command Center. Lieutenant Commander Paul Martinez watched as red dots appeared on the massive holographic map. The Drokath Horde had launched an attack on 3 outer colony worlds simultaneously. "This is exactly what we warned about," said a tall Voss commander, his forearms moving rapidly over control panels. "The Horde grows bolder. Earth had agreed to join the coalition against the Drokath, but the Thalians had given humans minimal responsibilities. Paul and his small fleet of 5 ships were assigned to protect a mining outpost near the edge of Confederation space. The location seemed unimportant, far from any expected fighting. "Lieutenant Commander," a voice called from behind him. Paul turned to see Admiral Jen Talk, the Thalian military leader. Your ships will remain at Mining Station 12. We do not expect action there. Sir, my ships are combat ready, Paul said. We could help reinforce the Meraxis sector. The Admiral's expression was difficult to read on his alien face, but his tone was clear. Your vessels are inadequate for frontline combat. The mining station is an appropriate assignment for your capabilities. Later that day, Paul met with his fellow officers in their temporary quarters. Commander Valerie Young slammed her fist on the table in frustration. They treat us like children, she said. Our ships may not be as advanced, but our tactics are sound. Chief Engineer Scott Bailey nodded. They dismissed my suggestions for modifying their shield frequencies, said human engineering concepts were quaint. In another part of the station, Dr. Olivia Bennett faced similar treatment. She had been working with alien scientists on analyzing Drokath biology and technology. Her team had discovered that Drokath ships emitted a specific radiation signature before jumping to faster-than-light travel. This could give us advance warning of their movements, she explained to the Thalian science director. The tall, willowy alien barely glanced at her data. An interesting theory, Dr. Bennett. We will consider it along with other reports. Olivia knew what that meant. Her work would be filed away and forgotten, just as they had ignored her findings about weaknesses in Drokath communication systems. That evening, Earth's representatives gathered in their common area. Admiral Hayes joined via secure transmission from Earth. How bad is it? He asked. 3 colonies attacked, Jackson Cole reported. Heavy casualties. The Thalians were caught unprepared despite warnings. And our status? Paul stepped forward. We've been sidelined, sir. My fleet is stationed at a mining outpost so remote, it doesn't even appear on most star charts. They don't trust our abilities, Samantha added, or our judgment. Hayes was silent for a moment. Continue to follow orders, he finally said. But stay alert. This situation may change rapidly. The next day brought news of more attacks. The Drokath were advancing faster than expected. They showed no interest in negotiation, only conquest. Reports described their brutal efficiency in battle, overwhelming Thalian forces with surprise attacks and unusual tactics. Paul was reviewing sensor data when an urgent message came through. His hands froze over the controls as he listened. This is Colony Outpost Vega. We are under attack by Drokath forces. Thalian defense fleet destroyed. Civilians trapped. Any Confederation ships in range, please respond. The message repeated, growing more desperate. Paul checked the star charts. Colony Outpost Vega was less than 6 hours away at maximum speed. His orders were clear. Remain at the mining station. The Thalians had specifically told him not to engage in combat, but there were people dying at Vega, and no other help was coming. Paul opened a channel to his small fleet. Prepare for immediate departure. Combat stations. Commander Young looked at him with concern. Sir, our orders. I know our orders, Paul said quietly. But sometimes you have to choose between following orders and doing what's right. As the human ships broke orbit and set course for Vega, the Thalian monitoring station noted their departure with dismissal. What could these primitive vessels hope to accomplish against the Drokath? It would be suicide. The 5 human ships dropped, out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Vega system. Paul Martinez stood on the bridge of his command ship, the UES Dauntless, staring at the tactical display. Scan for Drokath vessels, he ordered. 8 enemy ships detected, replied Tactical Officer Rosa Kim. They're surrounding the colony. The settlement's shields are failing. Paul studied the situation. His 5 ships were smaller and less armed than the Drokath vessels. In a direct confrontation, they would lose. But humans had been fighting wars against superior forces for thousands of years. All ships, this is Lieutenant Commander Martinez. The people on that colony have no one else to help them. We're going to use every trick in the book. Paul had spent the past month studying Earth's military history, the ancient Greeks at Thermopylae, the naval battles of the 20th century, guerrilla warfare tactics. Now he would apply those lessons to space combat. We'll use the asteroid field to our advantage, he told his officers. Break formation. Each ship will attack separately, then retreat back to the asteroids for cover. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Kevin Ross worked frantically. The Thalians had shared little of their advanced technology, but Kevin had studied what he could. Now he was modifying the Dauntless's power systems in a way no alien engineer would have considered. This might burn out our emitters, he told Paul over the comm. But it should create an electromagnetic pulse that will temporarily disable their shields. Do it, Paul ordered. The human fleet began its attack. The UES Valiant drew first blood, darting from behind an asteroid, firing on a Drokath ship, then disappearing back into the debris field before the enemy could lock weapons. On the colony surface, the settlers watched in amazement as the small human ships danced around the much larger Drokath vessels. They moved unpredictably, never staying in one place, using the asteroids as shields and weapons. They're crazy, a Voss colonist said in awe as a human ship skimmed the surface of a massive asteroid, drawing Drokath fire that caused a chain reaction of explosions. The battle raged for hours. The human ships took damage, severe damage. The UES Horizon lost its main engines. The UES Guardian's hull was breached in 3 places, but they kept fighting. The Drokath, used to enemies who fought according to established Confederation tactics, grew frustrated. They began making mistakes. "Now, Kevin!" Paul shouted as the Dauntless swept past the Drokath flagship. Kevin activated his modified systems. A wave of energy pulsed out from the human ship. The Drokath vessel's shields flickered and died. Immediately, the other human ships concentrated their fire on the vulnerable target. The Drokath flagship exploded in a blinding flash. 2 other enemy vessels caught in the explosion suffered heavy damage. "They're retreating," Rosa shouted as the remaining Drokath ships began to pull away from the colony. The human fleet, battered and barely functioning, held position over the colony. Paul opened a channel to the surface. "This is Lieutenant Commander Martinez of Earth. Is everyone all right down there?" A pause, then. We're alive, thanks to you." The Thalian Defense Force was destroyed in minutes. "How did you defeat them?" Paul had no time to answer. His tactical officer called out, "Sir, 3 Thalian cruisers just entered the system." The Thalian commander who contacted them did not bother to hide his shock. "Human vessels? You engaged the Drokath?" His large eyes moved from the human ships to the debris of the destroyed Drokath vessels. "How is this possible?" Paul's ship was venting atmosphere from a hull breach. 2 of his crew were dead, many more injured. But he straightened in his chair before answering. "We did what needed to be done," he said simply. Word of the battle spread quickly through Confederation channels. The small human fleet that had defeated a superior Drokath force. Some called it luck, others dismissed it as desperation. But the colonists who witnessed the battle told a different story, of ships that moved like no others, of tactics never seen before, of humans who fought with a courage that defied logic. And for the first time since first contact, the Thalians looked at these fragile beings from Earth with something new in their eyes. It wasn't respect, not yet. But it was the beginning of doubt about their own assumptions. 1 month after the Battle of Vega, the war against the Drokath had grown worse. The alien horde had pushed deep into Confederation territory, destroying everything in their path. The Thalians, for all their advanced technology and physical prowess, were losing. Colonel Natalie Fisher stood before a group of 30 human soldiers on the Thalian war cruiser Vanguard. They had been requested, not as leaders, but as observers to learn from the superior Thalian military. "The Drokath have taken 3 more star systems," she told her troops. "Our orders are to watch and learn, but be ready for anything." Natalie had selected soldiers from Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies. They were the best humanity had to offer, though the Thalians still viewed them with doubt. The humans began training alongside alien troops. At first, the differences were stark. The Krell warriors could lift 3 times what a human could. The Voss moved with blinding speed. But as days passed, something unexpected happened. During a simulated battle that lasted 18 hours, the Thalian soldiers began to tire. The Krell grew sluggish. The Voss needed rest periods, But the humans kept going, pushed past exhaustion, and continued to function effectively. "How are they still moving?" asked a Thalian officer as he watched humans run their 15th combat drill without a break. In the science section of the ship, Dr. Alan Garcia worked with Thalian biologists. They had been studying the differences between species, trying to understand why the Drokath were so hard to defeat. "Humans have remarkable endurance," Alan explained to the lead Thalian scientist. "We evolved as persistence hunters on a high-gravity world. We can't outfight a Krell, but we can outlast one." The Thalian looked skeptical. "Physical might is the measure of a species." "Is it?" Alan asked. "Then why are you losing this war?" The next day, a human engineer named Bill Cooper spotted a flaw in the Thalian ship design while reviewing technical schematics. The Thalians had dismissed his suggestion at first, until he demonstrated how the power relays could be reconfigured to improve shield strength by 15%. Slowly, the attitude on the ship began to change. Humans were assigned to more critical roles. Their suggestions were considered rather than ignored. Then came the true test. The Vanguard responded to a distress call from a space station under Drokath attack. The Thalian commander was killed in the first exchange of fire. With the chain of command broken, Colonel Fisher took control. "All fighters, form up on my lead," she ordered. "We'll target their weapons first, then engines." The Thalian officers looked uncertain, but followed her commands. The battle was fierce. The Drokath ships pounded the Vanguard with heavy fire. When the main power failed, human engineers worked in darkness to restore critical systems. When a hull breach trapped aliens in a sealed compartment, human soldiers volunteered for the dangerous rescue, working in vacuum conditions that pushed the limits of their suits. A Krell warrior watched in disbelief as Private Joey Adams, his size, dragged 2 injured aliens to safety despite a broken arm. The human's face showed pain, but he didn't stop. "Why do you continue?" the Krell asked. "Your body is damaged." Joey grimaced. "Because they need help. Pain doesn't matter right now." The battle ended in a narrow victory. As the damaged Vanguard limped back to the nearest Confederation base, the Thalian second-in-command approached Colonel Fisher. "We have underestimated your kind," she admitted. "Not in strength of muscle, but in strength of will." News of the battle spread throughout the Confederation fleet. Reports detailed how humans had fought beyond their physical limits, how they had adapted quickly to unfamiliar technology, how they had shown courage that bordered on recklessness. In the Confederation High Command, a debate began. Perhaps these humans deserved more responsibility in the war effort. Perhaps they had qualities that the Thalians had overlooked. And in the shadows, the Drokath leaders received reports of these strange new allies of the Confederation. Small, physically unimpressive, beings who somehow fought with unexpected effectiveness. The Drokath, for the first time, felt something new. Concern. The massive space station known as Proxima Station hung like a jewel against the backdrop of a blue-green gas giant. It was the largest shipyard in the Thalian Confederation, home to over 50,000 workers and engineers. Now it was under attack. General Eric Washington watched from the bridge of the UES Determination as the Drokath fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel. 27 enemy vessels against a mixed defense fleet of 18 Confederation ships. "Their numbers are greater than intelligence suggested," said a Voss officer nervously. Eric had been given command of a small human contingent within the larger Thalian force. It was the first time a human had been granted any real authority in the war. The station commander, High Admiral Krell, had made it clear this was a test of human capabilities. "All human vessels, maintain formation," Eric ordered calmly. "Remember your training." The battle began with a devastating assault. The Drokath had adapted since their earlier defeats. They concentrated fire on the largest Thalian vessels. The flagship exploded in a ball of fire. High Admiral Krell and his entire command staff were killed instantly. Chaos erupted across the Confederation fleet. Without central leadership, each ship began fighting independently. They were powerful but uncoordinated. General Washington called a Thalian communications officer. You are the highest-ranking officer remaining. Eric felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. 50,000 lives on the station, thousands more on the ships. He thought of Earth naval battles from centuries past. All Confederation vessels, this is General Washington assuming command. Form battle groups of 3. Support each other. Shield weaker allies. The Thalian captains hesitated. Take orders from a human? But with their own leaders dead and the Drokath pressing their advantage, they had little choice. Eric implemented tactics from Earth's history. The ancient Greek triremes at Salamis, Nelson at Trafalgar, the Pacific battles of World War II. Space was different, but the principles remained the same. Groups 1 and 2 draw their fire toward the moon. Group 3 flank from below the orbital plane. They won't expect an attack from that vector. Communications specialist Lisa Donovan worked frantically at her station. The Drokath used an encrypted communication system to coordinate their attacks. For weeks, she had studied their patterns. "General, I've cracked their comm frequency," she reported. "I can predict their next moves." With this advantage, Eric repositioned his forces to counter each Drokath maneuver before it fully developed. The tide of battle began to turn. A damaged Drokath cruiser rammed one of the human ships, destroying both vessels. The UES Defiant took heavy fire protecting a Thalian medical ship. Captain Greg Wells and his crew refused to abandon their position despite critical damage. "We can hold them," Wells transmitted as his ship's hull began to buckle. "Get those civilians out." The battle raged for 6 hours. Human endurance was put to the ultimate test. While Thalian crew members rotated through rest periods, the humans stayed at their posts. Engineers worked in damaged sections without breaks. Pilots flew until their hands cramped around their controls. Finally, the Drokath commander signaled retreat. 7 enemy ships escaped. The rest were destroyed or disabled. The cost had been high. 4 human ships lost. 6 Thalian vessels destroyed. The station had suffered heavy damage, but it still stood. Most importantly, the majority of the civilian population had survived. In the aftermath, Eric walked through the halls of Proxima Station. He passed the medical bay where human doctors worked alongside Thalian healers, treating wounded from all species. He saw human engineers helping repair critical systems. A tall Krell warrior approached him. Eric recognized him as one who had once laughed at human strength demonstrations. "Your people fought well," the Krell said, his voice solemn. "I would not have believed it possible." Eric nodded, too tired for many words. "We've had a lot of practice at war. But you are so..." The Krell struggled to find a diplomatic word. "Weak," Eric suggested with a small smile. "Different," the Krell corrected. "Your strength is not where we expected to find it." As Eric continued his rounds, messages arrived from throughout Confederation space. The Battle of Proxima Station was being hailed as a turning point, and everywhere the story was spreading. Of how humans, those physically unimpressive newcomers to the galactic community, had somehow saved the day. The laughter had stopped. 3 months after the Battle of Proxima Station, everything had changed. The Thalian Confederation formally upgraded Earth's status to Category 2, acknowledging humanity's combat prowess. Human officers now served in leadership positions throughout the Coalition fleet. The War Council included Admiral Richard Hayes and General Eric Washington, their input no longer ignored or dismissed. Captain Lauren Miller stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned UES Victory, the largest human warship ever built. It incorporated Thalian technology but was designed with human combat philosophy in mind. Fast, adaptable, and tough, rather than simply powerful. "All systems ready, Captain," reported her first officer, Commander Jeff Bennett. Lauren nodded. "Begin Operation Thunderbolt." Across 3 star systems, the largest coordinated offensive of the war began. Human ships fought alongside Thalian vessels, each using their unique strengths. The Krell provided raw power. The Voss contributed speed and precision. The humans brought unpredictability and endurance. Earth's industrial capacity had been fully mobilized. Human factories worked around the clock, shifts that would exhaust other species. Lauren had heard that Thalian observers were shocked by how long humans could work without rest, driven by determination rather than physical strength. Enemy fleet detected, said Tactical Officer Pete Ramirez. 12 Drokath warships. Deploy. Fighters, Lauren ordered. Follow attack pattern Delta. The human fighters swarmed around the larger Drokath vessels like angry bees. They weren't the fastest or most powerful ships, but their pilots flew with a daring that confused the enemy. They used maneuvers that the Drokath computers classified as illogical and therefore couldn't predict. On a nearby Drokath command ship, a boarding team led by Major Daniel Foster cut through the outer hull. 20 human soldiers against a ship full of physically superior Drokath warriors. But they had surprise on their side. No one expected such a seemingly suicidal mission. Remember, Daniel told his team, we stay together, we move fast, and we hit their command center. The humans moved through the ship's corridors in perfect coordination. When Drokath security teams responded, the humans didn't try to match them in strength. Instead, they used shock grenades developed by Dr. Olivia Bennett that specifically targeted Drokath sensory organs. They employed tactics that confused the enemy, attacking from unexpected angles. When a massive Drokath warrior charged at Private Sarah Nelson, she didn't try to match his strength. Instead, she used his momentum against him, a judo move that sent him crashing into a wall. The alien's look of surprise was nearly comical. In the ship's engine room, Chief Engineer Kevin Ross had infiltrated separately. He planted devices to disrupt the Drokath power systems based on weaknesses he had identified in their technology. The aliens had always assumed that superior technology meant invulnerability. They never considered that someone might find clever ways around their defenses. Charges set, Kevin reported through the comm. 2 minutes to detonation. The boarding team fought their way to the escape pods, taking losses, but completing their mission. As they launched away from the Drokath vessel, they watched it go dark, weapons and shields failing at the critical moment of battle. Lauren's ship swooped in to deliver the final blow. The Drokath command ship exploded, throwing the enemy fleet into confusion. All ships press the advantage, Lauren ordered. The battle raged for hours. Human crews ignored exhaustion, pushed through pain, and refused to give up even when their situations seemed hopeless. A damaged fighter, piloted by Lieutenant Joe Ramirez, rammed a Drokath ship's weapons array when his own weapons failed. When it was over, the Drokath fleet had been destroyed or scattered. It was the most significant victory of the war. In the aftermath, Lauren walked through the medical bay checking on wounded crew members. A Thalian officer who had been attached to her ship as a liaison stood nearby, watching. I do not understand, he said finally. Your bodies are so fragile. A Drokath warrior could break your bones with one hand. Yet you fight as if you do not know this. Lauren smiled slightly. It's not about knowing your weakness. It's about knowing your strength. Across the fleet, similar scenes played out. Alien. Allies watched in growing respect as humans tended their wounded, repaired their ships, and prepared for the next battle. The laughter was long gone now. In its place was something new, a dawning realization that they had misjudged humanity from the beginning. Strength came in many forms, and the Drokath were about to learn that lesson the hard way. The massive view screen showed the Drokath homeworld, a dark planet circled by defensive stations and hundreds of warships. 1 year after the Battle of Proxima Station, the war had come to this final confrontation. Admiral Richard Hayes stood on the bridge of the flagship UES Earth's Hope, surrounded by representatives from every Confederation species. The gathered fleet was the largest in galactic history, over 500 ships from 27 worlds. Are we really doing this? Asked Zorlak, the Thalian ambassador who had first contacted humanity. Attacking their homeworld seems extreme. We tried to negotiate, Richard reminded him. The Drokath refused to stop their expansion. They believe only in conquest. The plan for the final assault had been developed jointly by human and alien strategists. Human ships would lead the main attack force. The Krell would provide heavy firepower support. The Voss would handle fast response and flanking maneuvers. All ships report ready, Admiral, said Communications Officer Frank Porter. Richard nodded. Begin the operation. The battle that followed would be studied in war colleges across the galaxy for centuries to come. The Drokath fought with desperate ferocity to defend their homeworld. Their weapons tore through shields. Their suicide runs destroyed dozens of Coalition vessels, but the Coalition forces had something the Drokath didn't understand: unity born of mutual respect. Species that had once considered each other inferior now fought side by side, covering each other's weaknesses, amplifying each other's strengths. On the medical ship UES Mercy, Dr. Olivia Bennett worked frantically alongside alien doctors. Her research had led to treatments that worked across species, saving countless lives during the war. Another wave incoming, warned a nurse as escape pods from a destroyed cruiser arrived in the medical bay. Olivia had been awake for 36 hours straight. Her hands shook with exhaustion, but she continued working. "Prepare more beds. We don't turn anyone away." In the thick of the battle, Major Samantha Wright led a mixed unit of human and Krell soldiers on a boarding mission to the main Drokath defense station. The same Krell warrior who had once humiliated her at the diplomatic reception now fought at her side. "Behind you!" the Krell shouted, shoving Samantha aside as enemy fire tore through the corridor. Samantha rolled to her feet and returned fire. "Thanks, Grakthor." The Krell nodded. "We make a good team. Your tactics, my strength." Together, they fought their way to the station's control center. Samantha's strategy and Grakthor's raw power complemented each other perfectly. When they finally disabled the station's defenses, the Krell looked at his human ally with new eyes. "I once thought humans were weak," he admitted. "I was wrong." On the bridge of Earth's Hope, Admiral Hayes received the report. "Defense station neutralized, main shields down. All ships, target their command centers," he ordered. "Remember, we want surrender, not extermination." The Coalition forces pressed their advantage. Human ships darted between larger Drokath vessels, drawing fire away from vulnerable allies. Thalian cruisers used their superior shields to protect damaged human ships. The battle was chaos, but organized chaos, guided by shared purpose. When the Drokath Supreme Commander finally signaled surrender, a cheer went up across the Coalition fleet. The war that had united the galaxy was over. 1 week later, representatives from all Confederation species gathered on Centauri Prime. The massive hall was filled with beings of all shapes and sizes. At the center stood Admiral Hayes, General Washington, Captain Miller, and the other humans who had helped turn the tide of war. The Thalian High Chancellor stepped forward. "The Confederation wishes to offer Earth full membership, not as a junior partner, but as an equal." Richard smiled, slightly. "And our classification?" "The classification system has been revised," the Chancellor admitted. "We now recognize that strength comes in many forms: endurance, adaptability, courage. In these, humans have proven exceptional." Later that evening, Admiral Hayes stood on a balcony overlooking the glittering city. Zorlak joined him, looking thoughtful. "When we first met your species," the Thalian said, "we laughed at your physical limitations. We thought you would be easy to control." Richard nodded. "A common mistake throughout human history, underestimating us. We will not make that mistake again," Zorlak promised. As celebration fireworks lit up the alien sky, ships from across the galaxy orbited overhead. Among them, human vessels flew proudly alongside their alien allies. They had been laughed at once, but no one was laughing now.